Wicked, wicked. Jungle is massive. Wicked, wicked. Wicked, wicked. Jungle is massive. Wicked. Yo, 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 yo. We got this skill.
Good morning, Hammers fans, and welcome to Claret and Booze. My name's Nick, and this is my daily ramble. What we're going to be talking about today, why that picture's up on my wall, and who I'm trying to wind up. We're going to be talking about the Gianluca Scamacca interview and some other rumours as well. So, yeah, let's get into it. Before we do, though, as always, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit that bell notification button and drop a like on it because it does help us. It really does. All right, okay, so Declan Rice, why have I got that horrible picture back up on my wall? Well, look, it's been a couple of weeks now, it's been approaching that. They still ain't paid us. Dec is still out in Portugal as we speak. He passed his medical ages ago. West Ham are said to be perplexed with as to why this is taking so long. And the information I've had through, this is a rumour, again, this is a rumour, is that Arsenal are struggling to gather the money. That's why they're using the fact that there's legal stuff going on with the paperwork they're holding it up for that reason. They're trying to empty all their piggy banks out, all the investors, to scrape together the 33 million down payment, because it's 33 million now, 33 million in 12 months, and 33 million in 24 months. So that'll be the full deal, more or less, paid up front. Not up front, but within 2 years. And it looks like they're struggling. They're struggling, bless them. They want to go out there being Billy Big Bollocks, trying to sort of spend big bucks on these players, but then, they end up looking a little bit muggy when it comes down to it. So look, with us, as far as we're concerned, we're happy to sell the player for 100 million. We'll go out, we'll replace him, we'll reinvest. Or, we're happy for him to stay. We don't care as fans, either way. It doesn't really matter to me. So for the time being, Arsenal fans, he's not an Arsenal player. He's not an Arsenal player. He's still a West Ham player. All right. Until you see him photographed in your shirt, I mean, can you imagine the meltdown? Imagine the meltdown from the Arsenal fans. Because look, we've all accepted it now. We've all accepted that he's probably going to move on. If it was announced that he was going to stay, we'd just laugh, because we'd just laugh at Arsenal. But imagine that headline. David Sullivan pulls plug on Declan Rice deal and is told to stay. Well, he's not going to move this summer, because Arsenal, they ain't got the money. They haven't got the money to do these transfers that they're dipping into. I mean, we know that the Kai Havertz deal was a big transfer, but they got an arrangement with Chelsea that they could pay it over about 50 years. So that's how they managed to fund that deal. But yeah, so for the moment, for the time being, just really to piss off the Arsenal fans, I'm going to leave that up on my wall, because he is still a West Ham player. He's still a Hammer. He's not a Goonie yet. All right. Right, on to the next one. Gianluca Scamacca and the exclusive interview that he gave La Gazetta. We've all seen it. My reaction initially when I saw, I think we all saw Romano's tweet, didn't we? Which was geared towards getting clicks, and it was just a couple of quotes taken out of the whole statement. Apparently, it was taken from headlines, so I'm not gonna go in heavy on Romano, because if you have a look at that tweet, he said these are the quotes from the headline of La Gazetta. So that's what he's done. He's posted that, and then he's gone and looked at the article, and he's posted. He's put a bit more meat on the bone in terms of what was said in that interview later on. It didn't look good. I didn't react very well. Didn't react terribly, because it wasn't a shock. It's not a shock to me that Scamacca would like to move. I think we kind of, I think we all accept that is probably the case, that he would prefer to move. But when you dig down into the actual interview itself, it's not terrible. It's not great. It's not great. You don't really, when you're going into pre-season and you've got you're just getting everyone together and you're trying to get. We've got no bloody first team coaches at the moment. It's all a bit disjointed. That was the last thing that I'm sure David Moyes wanted to be made aware of when they're on their way over to Australia. But look, it's done. It's out there. The quotes in particular about It's my dream to play for Roma, or he is a Roma fan. He's the Roma colours are in his heart. That much is fine. But when he adds the current manager of Roma into the mix, Jose Mourinho, and says how he would love to play for Jose Mourinho and how he thinks that he would develop him as a player, how is that not a dig at David Moyes? It is. It's a come and get me plea. It's a come and get me plea. But we know that it's futile, Gianluca, because as it stands, West Ham have already said we're not going to let you go for a loss, and the club that you want to go to haven't got the money to front it. They can't pay 30 odd million. They'll take you on loan. It is what it is. So what we do have to bear in mind is that Scamacca is going to be focused on the Euros in the summer after this coming season. So he's going to want to be back in that Italian squad. Now, to do that, to achieve that, he's going to have to be successful wherever he is, whether that's in Roma, but hopefully at West Ham. And there was a quote in there about how he said he's tipping himself to score 20 goals. He feels really good. He was playing all last season with an injury, with that damaged meniscus in his knee, which is kind of was his reasoning for not having the best season. I don't think he had the worst season. It was just injuries. I mean, if you look at Paqueta only kicked on in part 2 of the season. If Scamacca would have had that opportunity and he hadn't got injured, then maybe he would have done the same. We don't know. So, look, I think a lot's been made out of it. It wasn't great. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't as bad as the Antonio one. And it wasn't so much Antonio's words. I think this is what people they're jumping up and down about. How can you criticise Antonio but not Scamacca? Well, Antonio's interview, I would have been rubbing my hands together with Antonio's interview if it had been after the cup final. The reason that everybody had the ump with Antonio was because of the timing. It was in the lead up to that cup final. Nobody wanted any disruption at that point, and that is one thing I've got to give David Moyes credit for, because he did handle that very, very well. He probably wanted to drop him from the final. I would have, but he didn't. He fined him the maximum 2 weeks' wages. He dealt with the situation. We got through it. So on that instance there, you probably have got to give David Moyes a little pat on the back for the way that he managed that situation. But that was a difference. The difference between Antonio's words and Scamacca's was timing. The timing was terrible. Now, the timing for this ain't great. We're just going into pre-season. But that was going into a final to give us our first trophy for 42, 43 years. It was ridiculous. It was a ridiculous thing to do. So that's why people had the arse with him. And can you imagine if we'd have lost in that final, it would have all been pinned on Antonio. And do you know what? You couldn't blame people for doing it. So there was a massive difference. I think they're both dicks for releasing these statements. I've got to be honest. But that said, I like both players. That's my take on it. I don't appreciate any of this. It just feels like West Ham have got no control over their players. I mean, David Moyes goes out into podcasts and stuff like that. So how can he then stipulate to his players that they can't do the same? So Antonio's on a podcast. Scamacca's going out doing his bits and pieces. Soufel's gone out and said things in the press last year. It's a free-for-all. And if you ain't got a happy camp, then it ain't always going to be positive messaging that comes out, is it? I don't think it should happen. I think you should almost sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement, for anyone that don't know. When you sign a contract for a football club with stipulations to say what you can and can't do. And you shouldn't be talking about business. They should all be PR trained as to what they can and can't say. I know some people don't like that. They don't like... they want players to be honest. But you don't. It's all very well if it's a happy camp, but you don't need this. If things are bad, that makes it worse, okay? Yeah, it makes for good stories. It gives us something to talk about on here, but it ain't great. I really hope that they knock it on the head. I'm hoping that with the introduction of Stuyton, he'll look at the way that we're running things and go, whoa, what is all this? Why are these stories coming out? So I'm hoping that things change. But yeah, that's my take on it anyway. My take on it is Scamacca does want to go. We know that. It's obvious. And I'm sure he will go. But I don't think, especially if his heart's set on Roma, I don't think he's going to get that move this summer. He's not. Also, it's a big risk for Italian clubs because he had that injury last year. I think that's why he made that statement. He referenced his knee and that he's fit and he's firing, he's feeling great. He kind of... Look, in one sense, I feel sorry for him. It hasn't worked out for him here. It really hasn't. We've bought him under false pretenses as far as I'm concerned. We've bought a player in who could have gone to PSG, but we talked him into coming to us to play in a system that doesn't suit him. So we've signed him under false pretenses. And then you've got, he I think he was thrown under the bus a little bit. So I hope that he does stay, and I hope that he's a roaring success next season. I hope he really succeeds in the Premier League. I know a lot of people talk about his sulky demeanour. That doesn't mean he's miserable. That's just a man. That's just the figure that he cuts. He's quite a moody character. Haller was the same. There's loads of players like that. He's just a bit of a dark, moody character, you know. I've seen clips of him for Italy and Sassuolo. He don't smile much. It's just the way he is. You know, I don't smile much. I do smile. But no, I don't think that's a reflection as to whether or not he's happy. And then what you've got to realise is a striker wants to score goals. So if a striker's over here and he's struggling and he's not banging the goals in, he's going to be miserable. He's going to have the ump, you know. He's going to be upset with himself and disappointed. So you kind of want that. That's healthy, providing he ain't going to curl up into a shell and he's going to fight and he's going to try and make it better, which I think he will. He seems motivated. But the only other side of that is, even if you've got a fit and firing Scamacca, you still need to play him in a situation where he can succeed, where he can flourish, you know. And I hope that we do that, because he's an amazing player. He's a fantastic player. We should be moulding our team around these players. I think for me now, if you look at Paqueta and Scamacca, they're the two players that we should be building the team around. They're our best players. You know, they're our stars as far as I'm concerned. So I'm hoping that there'll be some changes. I think the Harvey Barnes deal, in retrospect, probably would have been a good one if you'd have had, because we've got Bowen on one side, because Scamacca's great with runners coming off of him. So he can drop a bit deep, he can link up play, and, you know, the runners can run the channel. So we've got Bowen on one side. It would be great if we had, you know, the same type of player on the other side. If it's not Harvey Barnes, hopefully we go and get another speed demon in, because that will be great for Paqueta. His movement, his touch, his vision. He's a great player. He's almost like he's like a number 10, if you like. He's a deep line forward. So I think it could work. There's no reason why it couldn't work. And if we're going to make those adjustments to the way that we play to suit Scamacca, then there might not be such urgency to get rid of Danny Ings. We could keep Danny Ings as a backup as well, because the only reason these players have failed, if you like, and looked shit is because of the system that we play that requires a bulldozer up front. So anyone that isn't a bulldozer looks lazy, looks lethargic, looks slow, looks crap. We've just got to adapt the way that we play, okay? It isn't just Scamacca. It's not just Haller. Moyes couldn't get on with Chicharito either. It looks like he can't get on with Ings. He's got to see the error of his ways and try and find a way of fixing this. I know that David Moyes, while he's, you know, none of us know how long he's going to be here. Look, at the end of the day, if we start well, he's going to stay here. He'll be here for the season. If he starts bad, the pressure will be back on him. But I don't want to start bad. I want us to start well. I want to have a good season. I'm fed up with moaning. Okay, I wanted David Moyes gone. I wanted him gone in after Christmas. I wanted him gone after the cup win. I still want him gone now. But if he's not gone and he's here, then I just want to focus on West Ham and just focus on, you know, what we're doing. Look, I'm still going to bring news out as and when it comes out. If it's negative towards David Moyes, tough shit. It is what it is. You know, he better start peddling some good PR for himself and start being a good boy around the club. So we're getting good stories coming out about the bloke as opposed to bad ones. I joked the other day. I said the last positive story we had from the club about David Moyes was when he delivered fruit and veg during COVID. That was literally it. So, yes, that's a Scamacca one done. Let me know what you think in the comments anyway. In relation, going back to the Rice deal. Right now, I've been sent all manner of theories and mad conspiracies on this in terms of why we're not spending money. And I can't possibly relay you to them all. So what I've done is I've gone for the story with the most credibility in my own head in terms of it fits into the way that I think things have gone, and that is with Tim Stuyton being placed into this club to be a disruptive influence to protect West Ham and to protect the assets for the new owner. That's what I believe. So I think that's the reason we're not seeing players come through the door. I think Tim's come in. I think he's looked at targets. I think he's looked at the way that we're doing things. And I think he's just going, no. That's not to say that we're not doing the same back. Apparently, Zakaria is a player that Tim Stuyton has recommended. It isn't the advertised 18 million. It's 8 million. 8 million, apparently, for a 26-year-old Swiss international with 49 caps. And his injury record ain't as bad as has been painted by West Ham social media. So obviously, you've got the likes of... Look, we know Sullivan controls certain news outlets that people read. and it's been peddled that this guy's got a really, really bad injury record. Now, I've had a look. If you have a look on Transfer Market, there's a lot of little injuries there, but nothing terrible. He's played 300 games in 6 or 7 years, which is not far off 40 games a season. It ain't terrible. He's 26. He's coming into his prime. So 8 million is nothing. That is literally, that's worth a risk. That's punt money. So we have to get him in for that money. But apparently, I'm hearing that there's a bit of a to-in and fro-in now. So the club, i.e. Sullivan and Moyes, are pushing back the same way that Steiten's pushing back on them, on their transfers. So they're going out doing digging, looking to discredit targets that Steiten is putting forward. Which is what we all anticipated was going to happen. So what does this mean? What does this mean for West Ham if this is the case? Even if we get the Declan Rice money in, because at the moment we can justify it in our own heads by saying, "Oh, well, you can't justify it because it's wrong." But you can say, "Oh, when we get the 100 million for Declan Rice, we'll start spending." I don't think that's going to be the case. I really don't. I don't think it's anything to do with us being skint. I don't think it's anything to do with FFP. I just think it's internal politics now. There's a change of foot, and I think we're just going to have to ride the storm. Now, the other thing that I've been told as well is that Mark Noble has a good relationship with Tim Steiten. So Mark Noble, very clever. He's got friendly with a new guy who's going to be here for the long haul. And obviously, Mark Noble is tasked with looking after youth development and stuff like that. Now, Tim Steiten really values youth development. He won't want to block the pathway of a really promising player if he thinks that player can come through. Because there's one thing better than going out buying a player for 5 million and then selling them 3 years later for 50 million, and that's paying nothing for a player. Bringing them through your academy and selling them for 50 million 3 years later. So Tim will be interested in that. Under his tutelage, he's going to want to see youth players, promising youth players that can save the club money, because that will all look good as well, to come through. And so what would you feel about that? I mean, looking at the team that we've got at the moment, if it does continue going, I know we all want signings. I'm desperate. I really want signings, As much as I like Flynn Downs, I don't want us to start the season with him in central midfield. But we don't know how it's going to go until we see it. It could be the fact that I'm clutching at straws, but it could be the fact that Declan Rice maybe was a bit suppressive to players around him because he's such a good player. There could have been a bit of underlying resentment there from players as well that knew he was moving on and he was a captain and he was moving on to bigger and better things. We might see something different now. Those players might come out with a little bit more fire in their belly and not feel like they're in Declan Rice's shadow. We might see a few players in the first team step up. You might even see a better Souček. You might do. I don't know. I mean, for me, I've seen enough. I'd sell him, but I suppose we can't with Declan Rice going out the door. But yeah, there's definitely something going on. Okay, I'm not saying I'm right, by the way, because this is all based around my theory, which is now a theory of many other news outlets and channels and people as well, because it makes sense. Tim Steiten being placed by the new owner to make sure that Sullivan and co don't fuck things up before they take over. It makes perfect sense. But what does that mean in the short term? And I just think it means frustration for us. But if there's an end game, and that is the case, and there is a new owner, which we'll never know until it's done, we'll never hear about it, then, we'll probably look back on this as a period, like a necessary evil, something that we had to go through. Maybe I'm just grasping at straws. Maybe this is just West Ham being a circus again and just fucking everything up. I just don't feel like it is this time. I feel like there's something more sinister's happening. I think change is coming. Not sinister, because that means bad. I think Sullivan going can only be a good thing. So, yeah, look, that's it from me. I'm not going to talk about incoming and outgoing players. I've mentioned Zakaria, but I don't think that's going to happen. I can't see players coming in yet. I'm reading story after story after story after story, players that we're linked with. We was going to sign that Luis Felipe from Real Betis. That was a done deal on Sunday. 20 million, done. We're going to get him signed. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. This is all nonsense. And I think what you'll see is, as the weeks go on, I think you'll even start seeing these stories slow down, because I just don't feel like there's anything happening. That's it. I don't feel like there's any credibility in any of these links. We haven't put a bid in for a player yet. That much I do know. We haven't put a single bid in for a player. There was a story coming out saying that we lowballed for James Ward-Prowse. Apparently we didn't. We haven't put a bid in for anyone. Not an official bid. So, Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Let me know what your thoughts are on today's ramblings. It has been a slow news week, so this is a bit of a place setter, really. I just thought I'd jump on screen, have a little chinwag with you all, and we'll be back. There is a new show that we're looking at putting out. I was supposed to be putting one out on Tuesday and then Wednesday, but they got cancelled because the guest had a hospital emergency. So we're putting that off until next week. They're going to start, and that's going to be with me, one other guest, and it's just an hour talking football. It'll be a live show, and the idea is that we invite someone in with a different voice, with a different take on things, who can give a different argument, because we don't want this to be an echo chamber. We don't. You know, we've got our Sunday night shows, and we've got our rambles where we get our thoughts across. So I think it's good and it's healthy to get opinions of other people brought onto the channel as well. So that's the idea of that. So that will be happening, I hope, providing we can get guests secured moving forwards. All right? So look, that is it from me. As I said earlier on, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit that bell notification button, drop a like on the video if you haven't already. And yeah, that's it from me. Gab you heads.